Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Samso. Again, we're at the Mill Point Bookshop Cafe in South Perth. I've got Scott Williamson back with us, third time lucky. Look, Scott, I think the last time we did this was almost 9 months ago, and lots of progress. Share with us what's been happening.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a break for everyone. Great to be back out in the open and in a coffee shop.
And having a coffee?
Yeah, it's great. I've really enjoyed the time at home, but it is good to be back. So we've been very busy and probably as busy as ever on site up in Vietnam, and it's a really interesting period for us where We've brought on our major shareholder as well recently. EcoPro paid a 62% premium to market right at the bottom of the, I suppose, COVID dip, let's call it.
Yep.
So they got, I suppose, a good price in the end, but we're really happy to have them on board, but really excited about what that money allows us to do. So they've invested $6.8 million at the premium. They've put on a board representative, Mr. Jung's come on the board. That funding allows us to continue and complete our feasibility studies over the next 12 to 18 months, but also most exciting is we get to continue exploration. And it was getting tough there for everybody, but great to have a big supportive shareholder in EcoPro being the largest cathode manufacturer in Korea. So. Very busy period has been for us, and excited to keep drilling and showing the market what we've got in Vietnam.
I mean, the EcoPro coming in is fantastic. That's a piece of the puzzle that we discussed earlier. I also noticed that you've had some drilling, and you're getting those massive sulfides that we've always sort of knew that was there, but it was sort of conceptualized theory, whatever how you want to put it. How do you think that's going to fit into the picture going forward? Yeah,
so we always knew that the massive sulfide were there. The previous owners drilled and mined a massive sulfide vein. They mined it for 3.5 years. They mined 20,000 tonnes of nickel. And there's 25 of these outcropping. So we knew they were there. The reason we didn't go and drill them first is because we wanted to show the market and the Korean investors that we've got a 10 or 20 year mine, and so we've done that now, and we'll show that in the maiden resource and scoping study in Q3. But now it's all about showing the market, I suppose, the real potential of the exploration. So, and most importantly, we're using all the modern science, so systematic geophysics, and then following that up with good drilling. So. Excited to be drilling massive sulfide, really trying to understand and unlock the geology, but most importantly, that supplements what is already a great ore body at Ban Phuc. So we've got a very large ore body that will be mined for the next 10 or 20 years, and now we can blend in the high grade to increase nickel units through the concentrator. So it's all about just pushing as much nickel through to our partner as we can. So if we can increase the head grade from, say, 0.81, which we're getting at King Cobra, with some 2 or 3% from, say, Bang Chang, we can really push through the nickel units and be a pretty significant nickel miner in the years ahead.
I think in some ways, a lot of people sort of, I don't know, maybe you talk to a lot of these investors and shareholders and stuff. To me, it's like, your projects it's a mine, but people forget the potential what this is, because when I did some research and looking at some of the Chinese projects to your northwest there, they're big mines. They're big, and some of the seals they're talking about could be 200 to 300 meters. So that's a long life mine in anyone's words. Do you find that? Do you think there's a timing in thinking of what your potential, I guess?
Yeah, I think most geologists sort of understand the scale that we're talking about. Most retail investors really don't understand that what a Jinchuan or a Norilsk really means. Like, these are some of the biggest nickel sulphide systems in the world, and they have delivered two of the biggest nickel mines or mining complexes. So as soon as you get to the border to the north, there's nickel mines every few kilometres, sort of thing. So they stack up all through that. So we've got a whole region on that border in through China. The reason there's not more on the Vietnam side of that border is there just hasn't been the systematic exploration which we're doing. So I think it is missed a little bit, and I think there are pockets of I suppose experts out there that really understand what we're onto, but it is a loss. It is definitely lost on most of the retail market. But we'll show that over time. It's just a matter of continuously hitting the market with good news, and one day it'll sink in. So we don't need to raise money, so I'm not too worried if it takes the market a little bit longer for it to realise. Obviously, we'd like to get the share price as high as we can at any given time, but we understand that it could take a little bit longer because we are in a different jurisdiction we're not just out the back of Kalgoorlie. It takes a little bit for people to understand that, I suppose, the world-class geology, the low-cost labour force, the hydropower, all these other things, the existing infrastructure. Eventually these things have to sink in, but I think the actual world-class geology thing, I do ram on about it, but I think it's definitely lost. We just got to show that with the drill bit.
Yeah, I mean, your latest intercepts, obviously, those kind of things are small pieces to your bigger puzzle. As I mentioned, I've looked at some of this Chinese stuff. And have you guys? I mean, you guys obviously have looked at it, and you know the comparison, like you've said, you've sort of been on that comparison. But I think because you guys are in that mining sort of going to DFS and PFS, and you become that boring stock, I think, which everybody goes through.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so we've obviously gone through that sort of discovery hype with the King Cobra discovery zone, but then as soon as the market sort of thought that we're moving towards development, it did start to cool down. So we're hoping that by showing the market these massive sulphide opportunities, we can hopefully reignite that exploration, I suppose, excitement. So yeah, we're really focused on making sure that we don't go into that boring developer mode, because that can be very detrimental to your ability to sort of raise money at the right levels and all that. So I'm confident though we can continue to hit massive sulphide. The EM conductors are within metres of where the massive sulphide is, so we've got a great tool there to continue to hit massive sulphide. So everyone, I suppose, enjoys a good massive sulphide hit. At the moment we haven't been able to put any of the assays in the market, but I think once the market sees this is high grade nickel, it's got the copper, the cobalt and the platinum, palladium, I think hopefully it starts to sink in. But yeah, it's all about reviving that excitement around exploration, which is our core strength, is exploration and showing the market and unlocking geology and adding value to shareholders through the drill bit.
I mean, look, I think you won't be disappointing in exploration. I think you're in a fantastic jurisdiction. We've went through this in the previous chats we've had. In terms of the nickel economics, I mean, we prior to chat we talked about how every commodity is sort of recovering. With nickel as a thing, I'm a nickel tragic. And nickel pricing, yes, you know, the demand supply thing's going to happen, but that was like 2 years ago. I mean, running on 3. So maybe you can share some light on that story.
Yeah, the nickel, it's such a tight market. It's one of the smaller markets on the LME. It moves quickly and moves with sentiment. Like most of the base metals, it's been, I suppose, it's been pushed lower because of the macro environment. I think potentially overshot to the downside a little bit, like most of the base metals. They're priced in very quickly at the worst case scenario, and then we're obviously coming off lows because the markets realise that the virus isn't going to affect the base metals as much as we first thought. So I think for us, we're more focused on what it will look like in 3 to 5 years, and that's when the electric vehicle lithium-ion battery demand will kick in. So at the moment, only 5% of nickel goes into batteries, but that will become a greater portion over the next 3 to 5 years, and eventually become 50% of the market will be in the demand from the lithium-ion battery. So that demand hasn't come yet, so that's still in the future. I think we're happy with today's nickel price. We think we can make money at $12,500 or $13,000 a tonne US, but we're confident within the next 3 to 5 years it'll be much higher. So incentive-wise, it probably needs to be more like towards $20,000 a tonne to incentivise some of these nickel laterites into production, and the nickel laterites are required to feed that demand coming from the lithium-ion battery. So we need to be building billion-dollar projects, otherwise there won't be enough nickel to feed the EV revolution. We're lucky that we don't need the billion-dollar project. We're looking at something much smaller, capex-wise, but we can deliver a fairly significant amount of metal into this demand that's coming. So being a sulphide ore body, we're confident we can make money at today's price. So we're not too worried about where the price goes. We think it will go higher, but yeah, it's almost sort of preferred to not be mining at these low levels because it's not a good price and not a fair price for nickel sulphide at the moment.
I think by natural occurrence, you're not going to be mining in 12 months or in 6 months. I think you're more going to be further outside of that, which probably fit what you just explained. I mean, look, Dr. Copper's almost where it was before it dropped, and I think that's always a good indication that things are moving forward. I mean, people like dinosaurs like me, and I'm thinking of buying hybrid cars, and so your theory might actually still be right. I'm looking at solar now, and I call myself a dinosaur because I'm too cheap to spend the capital. But I think that's in general what's happening, as you see, right? The things get cheaper, the capex get cheaper for people to invest in these kind of things like EVs, and but in terms of the capital market, I mean, you speak to the money people, the brokers. What's their sentiment?
Yeah, I think there's been a sort of, obviously there was a period there where the market's shut, and that was about the time where we were able to get this investment from EcoPro. So we were very lucky to I suppose raise that money when we did. But then very quickly it opened back up, and so obviously gold led the way, and so there's been an ability to raise money for gold projects. And then we've had these couple of discoveries in Western Australia, and that's just really revived the nickel base metals plays as well. So I think there's been this, I suppose, move towards the speculative end of money and an excitement for exploration again, which is great. We haven't seen that for 5 or 10 years but since we've had this sort of excitement around greenfields exploration. So it's great to have that, but it does, these windows, they open and they close very quickly, so there's been a bit of a rush on, and so everyone that had the ability or had a project that could actually raise money, most of them have tapped the market and they've done very well. There's always those pockets where it might be a little bit different metal or a little bit more difficult jurisdiction, or that are still hard. So it's not everyone's being able to raise money. It's very specific to a particular commodity or a particular jurisdiction or a particular type of opportunity. So I don't think everyone has seen the same sort of excitement. Obviously the gold miners and gold developers and gold explorers, but not all the miners have had the same success. So it's not quite a bull market, but it's got all the signs of one coming.
I mean, look, I think one thing that we sort of touched on when we sort of a lot of people probably haven't really put into the picture is the fact that you've got a partner that's spent some big money, and he's going to be your guy that will deliver it to the market, and that's not an easy feat, right? That's not insignificant in any project. I think that's quite good, and also I like the fact that you're logistically in the market. You're not sort of in Australia, but you're right in the mix of the manufacturers who are in China or South Korea or Vietnam, and sort of Indochina's where most of these manufacturers sort of brewing over the last few years. And in terms of say, you're in this position now, and you got this opportunity to talk to shareholders. What would be your thing to them?
Yeah, so what I can say,
apart from buying your stock.
Well, yes. Yeah. The EcoPro deal was not easy. So it took 2 years. It took many trips to Seoul. We were able to pull it off in one of the most difficult capital markets periods we've seen in years, but it was 2 years in the making. It was sort of like that overnight success that took 2 years to get, and so it was a strategy that I think we went down that path because of the difficult capital markets that have been around for nearly for many years now. So but what we found, and it was actually EcoPro that said to us, can you look for nickel sulphide? They particularly wanted nickel sulphide because they've had a history of difficulties around nickel laterite. So the Korean investors are very skeptical of nickel laterites, and they said, can you find nickel sulphide? And so we looked all around the world. So if it wasn't for EcoPro 18 months ago saying, can you look for nickel sulphide, we wouldn't have been looking, because it was the bottom of the market. It was tough. It was tough to raise money even for gold, let alone nickel sulphides. And so we were lucky that they gave us the guidance to go and source a metal that they will eventually be able to buy from us. And so it was built on a level of, I suppose, trust that, okay, you do the right thing by us and find the nickel sulphide, then we'll do the right thing by you and we'll help you fund it. And so that first investment was the first step to them sort of showing their appreciation for what we've done, which is we've landed one of the most exciting nickel sulphide opportunities right on their doorstep. So if it wasn't for EcoPro, we definitely wouldn't have been looking in Vietnam, and we would have probably been still chasing cobalt, or would have gone back to gold like everyone else. So we're lucky that there's a relationship there that's been built on trust, and then so they're returning the favour with this first investment. But now we'll get to see what they can really do, and they'll write big checks. So they're gonna really show the market how important Blackstone is to their future with the next investment, which will be much larger, and it won't. We won't see dilution to Blackstone shareholders. So we'll see the upside of that investment, but we won't see the dilution. So they're not interested in diluting Blackstone shareholders. All they're interested in is accessing the metal, and so we can. They've seen that we can deliver that metal because we've already got the existing infrastructure, and we're now doing the good science around the geology. And so, what I will say to I suppose everyone else out there is, if it's good for EcoPro, it's good for you. Like, why would you want to invest by anyone else other than one of the biggest cathode manufacturers in the world? If they're going to take us through this journey, come along for the ride. So I think that's the key difference between us and all of our peers, that we will deliver nickel battery products into the lithium-ion battery industry. The rest of the market is talking about it, but can they actually deliver it? Do they have the partner like we do? And I don't think anyone else does.
No, I think that's very important. I mean, you hit it on the mark there. It's good for the guy that's actually writing the check. And people should look at taking positions. Always, as they always say, right? When the shopping centre is having a discount, everyone's running into it. When the stock market is having a discount, everyone's running away from it. You know.
Amazing.
All right, Scott. Well, fantastic. I'm glad that we had this discussion. It's good. I think the story is evolving, which is really the key of this kind of discussions. Maybe hopefully 3 months time we'll have another little chat.
Definitely.
And again, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, look forward to the next chat, and hopefully we'll just keep delivering. So the next one we'll probably have our maiden resource and scoping study. So some really big news to talk about next time.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.